Over the last 20 years, since Susan Horn first brought this to everybody's attention here, we have been working with Willet Hauser Architectural Glass out of Winona, Minnesota. They're not just a local company, they work nationally and internationally. They restored the windows at St. John's Church, Lafayette Square, the so-called Church of the Presidents. You remember a president recently kind of stood in front of it, held a Bible up, that church. They've also restored and worked on the windows at the National Cathedral. They did a complete restoration of the windows at Grace Episcopal Cathedral in San Francisco. They've worked at St. Mark's and lots of other places, including little churches just like St. Mary's. And we had their studio representative come out and do a good analysis and identified the problems that we have. There's a lot of broken glass. You can't see it because it's hard to see in stained glass if it doesn't fall out. If you want to see what's going on, if you go back, the one in the corner there, where all the electronic equipment is, that bottom panel, take a close look at that. Again, you can't see it from where you're sitting. Take a close look at it. Be careful, don't touch it, you'll cut your finger. Because that window has got some real significant damage in the bottom portion. But recognized all of that, look for all the things that need to be repaired and replaced, how we can reduce the bulge in this window, reinforce it appropriately, and it's done very carefully, artistically, and with great professional care, so it's not something that is going to look untoward or inappropriate. But to do that, and also to take off the coverings that are on the windows now that are doing a lot of damage. If you want to know the damage they're doing, before you go home, take a little walk around, particularly look at this window, the one outside the sacristy here. You'll take a look, you'll see there's about 3 inches of caulking at the bottom where all the caulking and the wood has rotted and dropped out, which lets the northwest wind just whistle right through in the wintertime. So you can see that there. By the way, if you look very much at the top of that window, you'll see a wasp nest about this big between the 2 pieces of glass. If the wasps can get in, it's not good. So anyway, we got that all done and we looked at this, and the appraisal that they gave us of the cost to repair the windows and to replace all the coverings is about $28,000. That's a lot less than you might have been preparing yourself to hear. So we can do, now it's not a full restoration. This will be we'll repair the windows, what's called in situ, where they are. They're not going to take the stained glass out. They can do this while they're in place. They can fix where the frame has deteriorated and where the caulking has fallen out in place. And then they will put, in layman's terms, they'll basically put a new storm window on. But this storm window will also be vented so that it allows air to move, a controlled amount of air. So that it can dry out and so that heat doesn't build up that's causing the damage in this window, and particularly the windows along the south wall. So that'd be about $28,000. Since we're more than a third of the way with cash in hand already, we wanted to move fairly quickly, and we got a deal where they said, well, if you can commit to doing this project so that we can get it done before the 1st of July, we'll give you a discount, because they're going to have they have another project in Hastings this spring. And if they could do the 2 close to the same time, it saves them, that's called the mobilization, getting the crew and the equipment up here from Winona. So that would save us some money, so it would only be about $26,000 to do it. So we said yes, and we signed the contract, and we're going to do it. And we know that we have money in our investments that we can use to kind of borrow from if we need to make this happen. But we don't want to do that, because that's like spending down the savings account and you never put it back. So yes, I'm coming to you. The vestry is coming to you. Believe me, I didn't want to be the one to have to make this spiel. The vestry was very well prepared to dump it on the treasurer. And I was perfectly happy to have Sister Lori do all of this last week while I was gone and relaxing on the North Shore. I thought it was a good idea. My senior warden, my junior warden thought it was a good idea. My treasurer didn't think it was such a good idea. So I'm going to tell you more about this during coffee hour, but I wanted, while you're all here right now, to get the basics laid out about how we got to this point and what we're prepared to do. but I want to talk to you a little bit more about it. And we're going to do something a little, now, and I know some of you have said, and you rightfully and justly so, that, well, didn't we just spend a whole pile of money to replace that lift? Well, yeah, but you know, didn't we just spend a lot of money putting new carpet in our house before the furnace went out, and then we had to do that too? You know how that goes. We weren't anticipating that. This has been on the books for a long time, and we did use some of the money we'd been setting aside for the windows to help pay for the lift, because otherwise Stan and Joy can't join us for coffee hour or even go to the toilet. So that was a priority. So anyway, we're going to do what we can do. We have a good start. But we are going to ask you to consider making a gift. But unlike what we did when we raised money for the lift project, because we can borrow the money from ourselves for the time being, we're also going to invite you to consider making a pledge over time. So maybe pay it over the course of a year, pay quarterly, pay monthly. You know, not all of us have $1,000 just sitting around doing nothing. But you know, if you've got $100 a month for 12 months, that's $1,200. And $100 a month is easier to do than $1,200 all at once. So we're actually doing this as a pledge campaign. There's a website that just launched this morning on our website for the church, and we'll tell you more about that during coffee hour. But I'd like you now to just think about that and what God is calling you to do in your stewardship for the care of this beautiful place. I mean, if one of you wants to match the donation that we got from our friend of $10,000, we'd be very grateful. Those of you that can't do so much, it'll all count. Because just the way these windows were put in, they weren't put in all at once. It wasn't all done with one gift. A lot of it was done in payments over time. And so we're prepared to do that again. So give that some thought to see how God is moving you to care for this gorgeous building. Try to imagine it without these windows. It's pretty scary to think of that. These new windows, the protective windows that we put on the outside, they're actually made of a high-grade acrylic. It's like plexiglass, but it's very, very clear. So they'll show up more on the outside, but this gives a very good protection. They can bow with the wind. It's not unbreakable, but pretty darn close to unbreakable. So if debris flies around in a windstorm, or God forbid, a tornado, it does provide a lot of protection for the windows as well. It will help us with heating and air conditioning. They'll be much better for us in terms of how we manage our HVAC system in here, so they give us that protection. And we'll be able to fix the windows that are in really bad shape and make sure that they're good for another 100 years or so. So be generous and see how God moves you in your heart to respond to His love and to the love of the people who came before us and our love for those who will follow us in this beautiful church on the hill.